Dad Pod.
This is a video thing as well.
Doesn't have a name.
Podcast.
Midlife crisis.
Paddy Daddy.
Midlife crisis.
Dadcast.
That's not bad, actually.
Dadcast with Nivea Men. Try Ireland's #1 skincare brand.
All right, you're very welcome along to this week's episode of Dadcast, which is in partnership with Nivea Men. Want to feel great in your skin? Nivea Men has you covered from sensitive, tailored skincare to cleansing and anti-age. Try Ireland's #1 men's skincare brand. Ideally, everybody's going to get the chance to see how well our Nivea skincare, what's it called? What is it when you have like a process of
Exfoliating or
no, what's the whole like routine? Our routines are bearing out when they come to our live shows. You notice the way I'm saying plural.
Dave is on mute, and I can only imagine this is some good stuff. So
I wasn't aware of the singular show, let alone the plurals.
That's because you have not done a good job of helping us to promote this live show on our social medias. So it's funny. Everybody uses Instagram, it turns out. All of my friends who have never paid any attention to anything I've ever done in my entire life. But once we started putting up the, you're taking Dadcast on the road, you're doing a live show with Dadcast. What's the story with that? They'd all seen it on Instagram. Up. I don't know if they've signed up. I think
you up for freebies.
That's it. Like they're all like
freebies.
They're all like doing all right in life. I'm like, no, you pay us. That's how this works. Although I have obviously freeloaded off them for 2 decades, so maybe it's time to return the favor. I don't know how comfortable I'd feel having my mate at the show if we're actually going to get as real and deep and honest as we want to be.
No.
This podcast is not intended. It's not good to meet up with people who've listened to it. I definitely have found that. It's
I would like to say hello to all of my wife's colleagues who have been bringing up the various episodes of Dadcast just recently, who are, so hello to everybody out there. And maybe stop freaking her out by bringing it up, but alternatively keep going. It doesn't really matter.
So this is really happening. Yeah,
I thought you'd be a bit more excited about this. I thought you'd bring some energy, but it turns off you're all staring off into the distance.
No, to be fair, we have.
You're all checking your emails or something.
We have experience. We have experience in this regard. It was was it one show we did?
One show, the Leisure Picnic. One show, Leisure Picnic, and I'm fairly sure we weren't invited back.
2 at Leisure Picnic.
COVID. No, the second one was not a Dadcast. And your audio, by the way, Jared, is in and out like the old fiddler's proverbial. We did one Dadcast Leisure Picnic, then we did a bit of a free for all. It was a quiz, second time out. But no, I think once we get into it, like McIntyre comes into his own when the broadcast light goes on and his people are in front of him. That's when he's at his best.
Sure is.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Nothing better than testing this stuff when the cameras are rolling.
I did test it. That was the Zoom is not your friend. We'd been using something else. Anyway, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back now.
Okay, it's like a 1980s World Cup match where you're holding up the aerial beside the telly, and you need the least favorite child to do it. That was me. So
you're listening to George Hamilton on a phone in Sofia or somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. One piece of correspondence to get us going. Dadcast@offtheball.com for your email addresses is our email address if you want. So hi, really love the pod. It's given me a lot of laughs and nuggets of advice. Yeah. Nuggets kind of at the moment very tasty, but afterwards you're always hungry. I had my first kid, a boy, 4 years ago. So the pod beginning in late 2018 coincided with the start of my journey and genuinely left a void when you disappeared for a while. George, I'm very sorry. We have been very lazy about this, but we won't be anymore. Anyway, we recently had our second child, a girl, and our son has been unbelievable with her. I think the age difference has helped a lot in explaining everything, but we also bought a book or two explaining what's coming down the line for him. My wife also made sure our now 4-year-old said goodnight to the bump and included the new sister in a lot of the conversations around the house. When she arrived, he was instantly infatuated and has had no jealousy at all. His affection is so strong that he's actually a pain in the hole at times because my wife can't stop him attempting to hug the newborn at any chance. He's even attempted to assist with the feeding. Safe to say, my wife did not appreciate the squeeze from our boy.
He's
Oh my
enthusiastic.
Oh my God. The last bit is the books were What's in Your Tummy, Mummy by Sam Lloyd, I Am a Big Brother by Carolyn Jane Church, and We're Having a Baby by Marion Cocklico. I think that last name is made up and might be aspirational in the post-baby world, but George made me read it out, so congratulations.
Have you seen the Mark? Have you seen the Mark Goldbridge clip doing the rounds this week, where he's like, he reads in a contact from one of his viewers, and it's like, texting here from Frank in Brighton, wherever he is, and he's got Ed, and he's thanking me for staying up and positive. Thanks for getting in touch, Frank. It's been, then the penny drops. It's a bit like the author. I think that we went
Top
through
Doldridge banter.
We went through a lot of those books. We did pretty much a lot of that stuff with our first, when the second was in the post, and it didn't really have the desired effects at all. So I mean, I think it's no harm to do that, but it's not a surefire method of ensuring good relations at the end of it, in my experience.
The age gap is a huge bearing on it. Now, we've been through this in parts already, but our correspondent there, the 4 years seems to be ideal. They're old enough and far enough to understand what's going on, to be able to know the difference between right and wrong when you're baiting the head off a newborn as opposed to an 18-month-old just lashing out. So I think that helps. Well, we had a 2 years and maybe 4 month gap, and it was grand at the start, but then when they're about 3 and 4.5, 3 and 5, it's not as bad anymore than the other 8 or 6, but the constant fighting back in the day was, and I don't think that was down to jealousy. That was just sibling rivalry at each other all the time. 50% of the time playing together, happily best pals. The other 50% you're stepping in to act as the referee yet again for the 15th time in the day. Gets your on your goat a little while. It's only so much tolerance you can have for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I do wonder, is there actually now, if I could go back and just let them all wrestle all the time and never step in, and because they always sort it out really quickly, like they always eventually, and you're left there bearing grudges on behalf of the people who've been victimized, when actually that's completely wrong. They don't care about it anymore. There's a pecking order. There are pecking orders and everything. And this is I don't know, that was the mistake, is trying to intervene, to be the force for justice.
Yeah, but when it's physical, you have to intervene. Otherwise, you're going to be the chump that has to lump Emperor into the back of the car and drive one of them to A&E. Spend the day there.
Have you ever driven them to any yet for beating the shit out of each other?
No, because I've always got there before it became too physical.
It'd want to be pretty bad. Yeah. I mean, you know, I'd rather try stitching them myself if I had to than bring them to A&E.
Well, it's the stuff like, you know, one instant particular example that always really got my anger going was when it's usually the bigger guy, but it wasn't always that way, pushes the younger guy while he's running somewhere around the house, like it's a so-called game of tag or something, or out and about, and he pushes him in the back while he's mid-sprint, and the results of that can be horrendous. Into a door frame, into the side of a table, over a wall, into a car. Those really annoyed me, those ones. That's where I would just, no, I'm not standing for this. You don't push someone smaller than you. All from the one push. Yeah, I'm not standing while someone bigger pushes a younger fella while he's sprinting somewhere into a bloody edge of a wall. Not having that, pal.
Yeah,
way,
that annoys me.
Is the pecking order thing, is that not, I was just thinking about it when you mentioned it earlier, is that not the thing that we're trying to, when you're stepping into those conversations, is that not the thing that you're stepping in to try and, like, I'm going to use the word eradicate, knowing that you don't eradicate.
You got to live in the real world.
You're trying to say to the kid who's being put upon, like,
you can't allow the kid again.
I know, but you can't allow the kid who's being put upon be put upon for years on end. Right? You can't just stand back and go, well, you take the beating, and you know. Sure.
But the beatings are like, do the beatings not go around in a circle? And while one is beating one day, then others beating the other the next day.
Well, again, then on Dave's age difference point, that might not always be the case. There might be just somebody getting the shipping out of them daily.
Yeah, well, then I think you've got to step in. I think the problem is, as they get a bit older, you have to step in because they can definitely do more damage, and they become that little bit slyer, and that little trip or that sort of kick and all that can actually start doing a bit of damage. The problem when you step in is then the consistency. So I'd be lethal for the first one to complain outside with, and then it's, but he said this to me. Well, why? I'm like having this back and forth of whose side am I on here? Turns out both of you are terrible.
Yeah.
Don't like it when you're accused of not dealing with each guy in a balanced fashion. The accuser is usually the boss of the household, but when you go after one of the fellas for something that they've really done that they should not have done, but the other guy has probably done something very similar like seconds beforehand, and when that's drawn to your attention, you feel a little bit embarrassed, and then suddenly you have to display some faux annoyance at the other guy, even though you didn't see it. Well, yeah, I'm angry with you too, even though you're really not.
Well, that was literally the car journey. I get into the car, one of the kids like, he hit me. I'm like, what you hit him for? Don't hit him. He stood in my hand when I was getting in, and he did this. And I was like, okay, now do I just even it out? You've done something 10 times worse. But my reply to both is, don't do it again.
Are you getting are you saying your wife is saying that you treat one of your kids harsher than another one, or that in an instance, or generally? Is that what you're saying?
No, just it could be in one particular
okay.
instance. Yeah.
Okay.
That was ringing a few bells for you there, Adrian.
My wife does say, she does say
nobody
that
mentioned the wives, and you were like, oh, straight to that. So
well, I think that's what you were saying, Dave.
No, he was saying he's accused by the kids.
No, I've been accused by my wife.
Oh,
but no, in just one specific moment, not like you've spent the last 5 years favoring this child over the other. Is that what you're referring to, Adrian?
I was asking. I'm merely asking the question.
Yeah, but something
Come on,
triggered me
Adrian.
asking of that question.
Do you have a favorite child?
No, Jesus, no. I find that I don't know if you find this right, and I would be really interested. This is one of the things now that I'm most likely going to regret saying, but there we go. We're in too deep now. I would be very interested in your experience, or the listeners' viewers' experience. I do find like that when I'm spending a bit of time with one of the kids, like, I mean, I'm only talking about like 5 or 10 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, this kid is like the most amazing kid that's ever existed. Like, this kid could be my favorite kid. Nothing they can do wrong. And then I go on, I spend 5 or 10 minutes with another kid, and I'm then I find myself going, oh, no, it must be this kid. I don't know, do other people grapple with those things on a fairly regular basis? I mean, ultimately, when you step back from it all, of course, the cliche does apply. You do love them all the same, and they all have their amazing things and their not so amazing things. But I definitely do get carried away in a moment when I'm spending a bit of time with one of them particularly.
My favorite child is whoever's listening to this right now. That's my favorite.
In 20 years' time.
Would you ever feel a little bit of guilt? Like I might say in between school runs, I get spend time just alone with the younger guy, and it's about 3 days a week. It's about 45 minutes to an hour that we just have me and him, and I absolutely just cherish that time. And I might catch him at a moment where he's looking away or something, and just take a sneaky photo of him. And I would send the photo on to my wife and just go, to look at this kid. Like he's arguably the most beautiful human that's ever existed on this planet. And immediately then I'd be like, oh, well, of course, the other guy is amazing as well. He's let me find a quick photo of the other guy. I'm gonna send that on also. So I do try and even it up a bit, where I might catch the other fella then maybe in a moment where he's kind of distracted, and get a photo and send that on and go, look how amazing this guy looks. But I'm not sure we need to feel guilty with that kind of thing, trying to even things out. But I sometimes do catch myself doing that.
So you power ranking children is what I'm hearing, basically.
Yeah, well, as Adrian says, the power rankings could flip.
They changed.
The other
new information came to light
on an almost minute by minute basis.
Yeah, week to week performance, results dependent. Yeah,
like he just hit me in the head immediately. he has fallen to number 2 in the power rankings.
Yeah.
But as Nathan says, yeah, but he kicked me in the leg first and then he
Okay.
pinched me. Oh, well, the power
Well,
rankings are just.
you're onto something there, Jer, aren't you? Like, I know the therapist wouldn't advise it, but if you had a weekly power rankings of like
On the
sort of like star of the week at school, but they don't just give it to every kid. That's actually there's
Special treats. Yeah.
yes.
Right. Special treats like love and affection.
Yeah.
Hug. Who's getting this week's hug?
You could fiddle with your wire there, Jared, whatever it is that is making your audio
Yeah.
be better.
Are we just encouraging our children to take ever increasingly desperate measures for daddy's affection?
Sorry, is my sound gone, or was that your
Yeah.
joke?
You're
So every
back
time
again,
every time
in
you
and
start
out.
to speak, we don't get the first 3 or 4 words, and then it kicks in. I don't know why that is.
I think it's something to do with the microphone on the laptop. That's unfortunate because it was some of my best fucking material.
I doubt it.
I like that idea though. The power rankings is killer, Dave. That's up there with the black bag and the scooter over the fence. That's straight in your top 5 Dadcast moments of all time.
Oh, well, hang on. The scooter incident and the black bag, they're incidents that have actually occurred. I've never power ranked my children.
Oh yeah. I like that idea though, like a live power ranking on the fridge where you could sort of say, "Well, sorry about that, but you're down to number 2 this week."
Or you could use Alexa. So at any moment the boys are in the kitchen, one of them could just say to Alexa, like Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, mirror on the wall, Alexa, who currently tops the power rankings? And she'd be able to give them a live in-game update, and then they'd know that maybe they need to pull out a couple of stunts in the hours after that to see if they can flip the order.
Well, AI will get to a level soon that you'll be able to do that, and Alexa will be able to go, "You've dropped because I saw you smack your brother when you thought nobody was looking." But actually, the full awareness I have of what happens in the sitting room now means that all your sly little beating the shit out of people has been caught.
Let's hope that never happens. So I've been teaching the lads to cycle on the road, boys. Something I want to bring up.
As in, you've been teaching them to cycle, and they know how to cycle, and then you're moving them onto the road,
No,
or they're learning to cycle for the first time while on the road.
No, they both known how to cycle for years now, but I finally got a bike that fit proper bikes that fit both with the gears and everything. So finally moved away from the real childish bikes. Certainly for the younger fella who's now on the older fella's big bike, and then I managed to source another one for shout out to adverts.ie, by the way, unbelievable source for that kind of thing. Got a brilliant bike at a very good price.
Sweet deal, Dave, by the sounds of things.
It was great.
Can I say I wish I was able to take a sneaky photograph, because I actually passed. I was like, oh, that looks like one of Dave's kids, and Dave, that's Dave with him, and they both had their arms on each other like they were kind of 2 elderly people, in the midst of a maelstrom, like a bull run or something, who had wandered onto the streets of Pamplona, and neither of them looked happy. That's all I'm going to say. Neither of them looked happy. Were we
waiting to cross a road when you passed?
Yeah. You were about to get onto the Holt Road, which is, like quite a busy road.
Yeah. We were just unlucky. The traffic just kept coming, and we were stuck there for ages. And it just, the younger guy that you saw me with, he's just maybe an inch too short to really be comfortable putting his foot down onto the ground. So I wanted him ready for the next gap in the traffic. So that's why he was still on board, and I had my arm on his arm to kind of give him a little whoosh out into the middle of the main road for when the gap in the traffic opened up. But it's only in the last week. It's a mirror image of many aspects of parenting, the balance between teaching them how to do something and staying with them and doing so, and giving them a little bit of leeway and letting them off the leash a little, because I want them to cycle most places now. And now that the weather's got better and the days are longer and brighter, and they're both on proper bikes with the full gears and everything, and they need to learn how to cycle on the road. Part of me just wants to keep them on the path, but it's annoying when you're walking down the street and there's 2 or 3 kids flying past you on bikes on the path. They do need to learn how to cycle on the road, how to avoid cars, how to pull out from behind a parked car, the various hand signals, all of that stuff. But it's terrifying. It's absolutely effing terrifying when you're cycling down a main road, even with a cycle lane as there is where I live in one of the roads, which is great. But there's buses pulling out from behind them, and you're worried that one of them's going to pull the wrong brake and go flying over the handlebars. And As has happened, a kid tries to mount a curb that's a bit too tall and goes flying, and then you've got the grazed knees, and you're worried that when they come off the bike, it's going to be very difficult for them to get back up on the horse. But we've managed it successfully for the last week. I think we've made a lot of progress, but and we've mentioned this before on the podcast, various instances where you can almost see the death of your children in your mind's eye when you're cycling down the Hoth Road and there's buses and articulated lorries and vans and other idiots in cars and on bikes. Every 30 meters, you're envisaging your child just been slammed by a car somewhere. Oh my God.
I said this years ago, and you're like, what are you talking about? You're not walking around. And now I'm like, Dave, welcome aboard. This never leaves you now. Never leaves you.
I know. It's but what do you do? They have to learn.
You have to just try and get them up to speed in as safe as possible area as you can. I would suggest the Holt Road is probably not exactly an ideal spot for that, but definitely because the infrastructure, I mean, depending on what part of the city you're in, but the infrastructure is so shit and it does not protect cyclists. Like the curb stuff is not bad, but even at that, like if you're out with a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid, even in a curbed environment, they can take a wobbler one direction or the other for any reason. And exactly like you were saying, you play out all this.
Yeah, it's the involuntary movements they have on the bike that trigger a turning of the handlebars out to the right.
Yeah.
So for some reason he look around at me, but he hasn't learned how to turn. Yeah, he hasn't learned how to turn his head without turning his arms. Exactly.
Yeah.
So his head turns to the right, the arms go to the right, the handlebars go out to the right, and suddenly he's over the white line and he's on the main road and there's a van there. That's what I'm most terrified about. They also love looking at their feet when they're changing gear. They love looking down at the middle rings on the bike while they're changing gear. They like to see the chain move up and down the rings. And when they're changing gear, that's how you drive into the back of parked cars. How do you cycle into the back of parked cars? Stop looking at your feet. Stop looking at me. Don't look backwards. Stay to the left. Don't go near the white line. Just look forwards.
Are you having fun?
Yeah, this is fun. Everybody's having fun.
Let's do this again tomorrow. The kids are like, why? Yeah, I found that was the problem. And I haven't been out cycling with them this year. That it's just me shouting at them as to, are they learning anything here? I'm just telling them what to do. But I guess you have to go through all that so that in a couple of years, you trust that when they go by themselves, they will act some way normally. Because right now, like the problem, I'm sure it's the same where we're all living is, as you say, like where I am, there's no bike lanes at all. And even though I would often cycle behind them, and I cycle on this stretch of road all the time by myself, and it never comes into my head that the car that's coming right behind me is just going to run straight into me. I'm absolutely convinced when I'm with them that the car isn't somehow going to spot the three of us in the middle of the road and just keep driving at 80 kilometers an hour and take the three of us out of it. But it's not even the main road stuff, because you can explain all the rules of the road, and again, if that problem is the concentration goes, so they're over on the left hand side, but then they're veering slightly to the right as they decide to have a chat with each other. I find that the most difficult bit is going through the housing estates where there's cars pulling out, there's cars reversing, there's cars parked on the street. They're not quite sure when the car's coming towards them, they should stop. I think the bit of the child not being able to reach the ground is probably a tough spot. That they need to be able to suddenly stop and jump down and get their feet down. Is the bike too big, Dave?
It's probably too big by half an inch or an inch, but I have taught him how to tilt the bike so that, even just needs to be tilted at a slight angle, and he's grand. The dismount, as I've been telling him that he is nailing it. But that particular mode, the Jer saws, I just wanted him ready to go while we got a break in the traffic. But no, he's actually got that. We had a few falls the first few days where he was still trying to get off the bike before it was at a complete stop. And that was a big problem. So that led to a little bit of friction and alarm. But in fairness to him, this is the younger fella. Last week now, he's nailed it. He knows exactly what he's at and he's flying it. And the problem is this guy's uber confident in everything he does. And he has been out on that bike on his own now for a couple of weeks. He knows it's a big boy bike. He's got the gears he can fly up and down in. And he thinks he's like a professional cyclist now. And now he's standing up. And now he's cycling with one hand, and he's putting his feet out into the air while he's speeding down hills. And he's, what else was he doing the other day? There was some other trick he was decided he wanted to do on the main road. And well, part of you admires his courage and his confidence. The other part, he's going, you're a maniac. I'm trying to keep you alive here. Can we please just rein things in a little?
I think you have to try and get the cockpit hours in a quiet area. And the other thing is, you have to accept they are going to fall off the bike. That's the hard bit. Like, and you're just hoping that the damage isn't too bad.
Oh yeah, a couple of grazed knees. Look, that's grand.
Yeah,
It's the one
cycling
where
into
you kind of come
on
over the
traffic.
handlebars kind of thing, and like that's happened to all of us. I had a couple of major falls when I was a kid. Where you maybe pull the wrong brake, and I'm trying to teach him how to squeeze the brake when he's slowing down, as opposed to pulling it back where he stops suddenly.
But you got car door, Adrian, didn't you?
I got car door. I've had some awful stuff off the bike. I had, when I was a young fella, probably 7 or 8, my cousin gave me a crossbar out to Lough Ree for a bit of a swim. About 5 minutes out the road, the back heel of my runner got stuck in the spokes, ripped the heel off my runner. Lovely velvet red runners, I remember them. They were pretty red after that because they were covered in blood. Got myself and the father were again coming back from the lake this time, passing by the school that was under construction, and it was a joyous moment. Myself and my dad thought, oh, this is great. We'll put our arms around each other because this is like such a lovely father-son moment. The opposing pedals got stuck in the opposing wheels, so going from whatever, like 20 kilometers an hour to 0 instantly, and both of us out over the handlebars. Serious damage. I remember waking up on the couch at home, so like just obviously out like a light, both of us, and somebody came along in a ute type vehicle, which, like, how many utes are there anywhere, which was a miracle, and got us up off the road, brought us home, woke up on the couch, looked over at the young man, like, just saw him covered in blood. And it was, you know, because you're just out of it, you're like, oh, I wonder what happened to him. Not really thinking that you yourself were kind of not in a great position. And then,
What age was that?
That was probably about 12, maybe. Lost a front tooth, and lost it like front tooth that, and then anyway, that's a whole other scenario. That was a bad job. And then I got car door coming down Leeson Street about 4 or 5 years ago, coming in here. Some numpty about 5 cars back on the passenger side opened the door straight into the lane directly in front of me, and I went out over the top of that, broke scaphoids in both my wrists, which I was only back at the physio about, would you believe, last week. That's
never healed.
5 years later. There's a bit of a what did he call it? A little bit of liquid slipped out between the ligament. The ligament is a tiny bit damaged, a little bit of liquid ganglion cyst, I think was what he called them. And it just creates a little bit of pain. But like, it is the price you pay. And I think, was it Dave said earlier on, you're in total control when you're cycling yourself. When you're cycling with one kid, then that's not too bad. When you're cycling with 2 kids, it's a bit out of control. But you can control roughly what you're doing and kind of what they're doing. But you can't legislate for the lunatics.
We have a cycle bus that we can only really use a couple of times a year, and but so there's a cycle to work day, and like hundreds of kids cycle, and it really pisses off all the traffic. And but it's a brilliant thing where every day there are 15 or 20 people cycling to school together, and they just pass at the pace they're doing. And if you get stuck behind them, you get stuck behind them. But more of that and more cycling infrastructure, and everybody being able to use them properly. Like, I don't see any downside from an environment perspective, from a social perspective. It's really cheap. It's good for the, anyway, whatever.
But the bullshit of, the councillor or the TD saying, oh, I've created 20 kilometers of cycle routes in my constituency. No, you haven't. Like, somebody's gone out with a roll of white paint and painted a line in the middle of a motor lane. That is not a cycle lane. It's actually creating a false sense of security for the cyclist, which is doubly dangerous. It's a real bugbear about that. Like, the curb stuff is pretty good because you've a bit of, certainly for an adult, a sense of security or an actual security. But yeah, there could an awful lot more could be done.
I have one more bit of correspondence which I will get to if everybody's finished with cycling. I've got nothing for you. I mean, keep going, buddy.
Well, Dave was feeling all right about it. Adrian just went through his litany of catastrophic errors.
Well, look, I've had a couple of instances like that myself on the bike, but that's unfortunately that just goes with the territory, particularly if you're cycling around town and the amount of people parking up. And look, there's just so many stupid people in cars and on bikes, and you see them when you're going through an airport, and like, I don't know, in certain environments, like a lot of people, as soon as they step onto a plane, their IQ seems to drop by about 60%. A lot of people,
There's a story here, Dave. Come on.
a lot of people when they get behind the wheel of a car, they just seem to become far more stupid than they were before they got behind the wheel. And you just have to try. And my motto when I'm driving is that everybody around me is thick, so it puts you in a psychological position where you very often see their mistakes happen before they actually happen. So you're in the left lane, or you're in the right lane of a 2-lane road. You're going, I think there's a very good chance the driver in front of me is going to just jump into my lane here.
Oh, yeah.
And then 10 seconds later, Ivy just eased off on the brake, left the space, and sure enough, no indicator. There they go, veering over. So that's one crash avoided, because you've decided in your own mind, as soon as you sit behind the wheel of your car, that everybody around you, even though you don't know who they are stupid. You're probably going to have to do that when you're on the bike as well. But as Adrian says, you can't protect your children from that level of stupidity. I can ensure that I leave space between myself and wherever that car is coming from, on the off chance the person is stupid enough to pull out without looking over their shoulder. But what if your kid is already in that space? You can't do anything about that. And that's the terrifying part of it.
Yeah.
My young fellow was asking me the other day when we were out for a cycle, he was saying he was going through the sort of connotations of what might happen if you get hit by a car. But so he was talking about, like, you know, being hit by the car. I think he might have even been talking about being over by the car, but it never dawned on him about the next step. About like
The death.
Exactly. He was like, "Oh, would you have to go to the hospital?" I was like, yeah, you would,
yeah. Pick you up.
Well, did you ever get to, like, what would be worse, Daddy? Getting hit by a truck or getting hit by a motorbike? So, okay. Well, let's pick our poison here. The outcome of either is unlikely to be pretty for anybody involved. But and then he said, "No, I need an answer." Yeah, but like, the chance of the motorbike is probably going an awful lot faster than the truck. Obviously, the truck's carrying an awful lot more bulk. Do you really want to go through the scenario of either of them? Not really.
I'd take the motorbike.
I think why do we have to make this choice?
We don't. It turns out.
Usually you do.
Good parenting, Dave. You parented the 2 children there very well. Right, moving on. An email from longtime correspondent Jenny. Hi guys, I'm a single mom to a 21-month-old boy and a 2-month-old girl via donor, so I really am all they have. It'd be fair to say I didn't cope very well with the transition to motherhood, and I'm now finding life as a mother of 2 extremely challenging. My son has definitely hit the terrible toddler terrorist stage, and I find I have so little patience with him. I'm tired and stressed and irritable the whole time. So I guess my question is, how do you find some joy in it all when you feel like you're just surviving from day to day? It feels so relentless and just generally soul destroying right now. I realize my experience is very different to yours, as with a partner, you have some hope of occasionally getting some time to yourself to recharge your batteries. I'm sure you've all had those days at least once in a while, though. I ask this partly for my own sake, but also because I worry about the effect my mood could be having on my toddler in particular. Brilliant to have you back. I actually listened to you while in labor with my second. I was alone for the birth, so you kept me company. Hope you keep it going for a long time to come. Cheers, Jenny.
Wow.
Yeah, thanks very much for getting in touch again, Jenny. Dadcast@offtheball.com is the email address. So silence on the
start
Dadcast.
there? I suppose
you go first, Dave.
You see, Jenny has pointed out, she's made a very good point, that the 4 of us were we had a partner involved, a partner in crime. So she doesn't have that, but obviously Jenny is one of like countless single mothers or single fathers single parents out there at the moment. So there'll be an awful lot of people listening to us who probably would empathize with what Jenny was saying. So please do get in touch with us if you have experience of what Jenny's talking about. But I do remember, I never felt those emotions myself, but I do recall when our second was born that I was away. I was still working with you boys a lot, and I was away an awful lot with work, covering Premier League games mainly, gone the whole weekends and working pretty much 6 or 7 days a week. And she was at home with the 2 lads, and the older guy was in the terrible 2s and dealing with what was a newborn. And there was times where it was obviously a real struggle. And so from that point of view, I can definitely I get what Jenny is saying. Yeah, what can we say to her, lads, apart from like that it will get easier? She's
Yeah.
got a very young baby and a child who's 2. Even
You
with a
need-
partner, it's tough. It's very tough.
I think it's brilliant that that she would bring this onto our radar as well, and the radar of our viewers and listeners. I think like the reality is that you need. Jenny hasn't given any details about any like support structure that you might have, right? Like, are there grandparents there? Are there friends? Any of her siblings? Like, 'cause I think that's so important, knowing people who, in my own family, who single parents, and you need that structure around. Like, it's really difficult to do on your own. So it'd be good to know, is there any more details around there? But I'm sure there are obviously avenues that she would explore already, because you do, like, God, give yourself, you do need a break. Like, you need a break from it. Like, it's so important. Like, she's identified absolutely correctly. It's fine for all of us. You can disappear off for half an hour or half a day or a day if you're very lucky. And that headspace, you need that headspace to recharge, exactly like you say. Like, we've all certainly, you have bad moods and you're conscious of how that can impact on the kids around you. But that's the time where, we would have the opportunity to disappear for a half hour or whatever, get your head out of the game, go for a walk, bit of fresh air. You need it, like, and there's no, I'm sure she's not fighting that instinct, but there's certainly no need to. But if you could find a little bit of support around to give you, when the time comes where you need to let the steam, to release the valve a little bit, that you have something there to help you. I think that's
the breastfeeding groups, the mammies groups, they've all been good sources of just information about like local supports, local babysitters who are comfortable with young babies, meetups, like all that stuff, anything that takes you out of the routine. And you just remember how long it took to get out of the house, to get all the shit together that it took, and then you were actually only going out for half an hour. But here's the thing, the first 4 or 5 weeks, while it's taking you 6 hours to get out of the house for the 25 minutes that you're out of it, eventually that time telescopes, because you just get better at it. You realize you don't need all of the things that you brought. And if you're missing something, the baby's actually not going to die because it has a shitty bum for an hour and a half. Like, it'll be fine. You'll get over it. And maybe not, not striving for the perfection and giving yourself a break. Like, all the shit that like somebody tells you to do, and you're like, yeah, it's easy for you to say that because you're not actually going through this at the moment. But
the time will come very quickly when the 2-year-old's going to preschool / Montessori. That'll give her a huge break, because you're down to man on man there, 1v1 situation, as Kenny would call it, and it just makes everything so much easier. And again, we don't know what her Jenny's circumstances are in terms of those support systems that Adrian mentioned. But if she can at all consider putting the older child into care for 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day, it's something we didn't do, and it's something that if we had our time again, we would have done. Not only does it give her a little bit of a break, and again gets her 1v1, but it also, and the newborn sleeps an awful lot. So if you're in a situation where the other child is in care for 3 or 4 hours and your newborn is down for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, God, that's bliss, I would say, for a single parent in particular. So just have a look around and see if that's possible. Also, it gets the older child mingling with other children a little earlier, builds their confidence, builds their ability to socialize with other children. And obviously it's expensive, so we don't know if it's an affordability thing, but that's something we would have looked at if we'd had our time again. So maybe Jenny could look into something like that.
Yeah. And look, that comes with its own issues, because as soon as you start going to crash for the first time, then you start getting sniffles and bugs and everything. So you just need to be prepared that there will be times when you have made plans and unfortunately there's a sickness in the house and you can't go and everybody gets it. But yeah, look, it is tough. And I think the other thing is just remembering that this is tough. And we did a piece recently with Brendan Devaney, which was just amazing, where he was talking about listening to news talk and people giving out about ever having kids and deciding retrospectively that they didn't want them. And he was like, this is going to pass so quickly. And you just need to create these moments where I'm not going to do justice to this, but he was talking about, like, his wife was saying that you need to put X amount in communion and confirmation cards. Like, no, I'm going to take those kids to the park and we're going to have a moment. we're going to create something. Now, he has a relentless, infectious enthusiasm for life, which most people don't have. And it's hard if you don't have it to fake it. But he was talking about going camping, and that's better than them going on a package holiday, because it's something they did themselves and they've created that moment themselves. It's on our the GA feed if you want to go back, and it's the last 15-20 minutes of like a 40-minute piece that we did about him with him. And it definitely came away from that feeling, okay, I need to do a little bit better here than going through the drudgery. It's carving out specific moments where, you know, you're down on the floor playing with them and you're actually enjoying it. And it could be blowing bubbles, you know, but that's actually going to be something the kids remember and get more joy from than something that's like a trip to somewhere, or we're going to the zoo, but it ends up being stressful because by the time they get there, they're too hungry and then they won't eat the shit that's in the place. And then all of a sudden everybody's fighting with each other, which definitely never happens.
And you say to yourself, I am never paying to bring these brats somewhere again.
Anywhere.
I know. Last couple of weeks, we've myself and the younger fella, again, it's between the two pickups from school. After his homework, we throw a song on Spotify, and he loves putting on Shut Up and Dance at Me, because he gets to roar the word shut up as loud as he wants, and knowing that he's not going to get into trouble for it. And then we dance. The two of us dance to that. He's up on a higher level and we're head to face, and it's amazing. It's so much fun. To the point where I wish someone was like secretly recording it and they could play it back to us in 30 years time, just to show us the crack that we were having. But little moments like that maybe Jenny, if she could create, even if she has to fake it for the first couple of times. So when she can feel, you know, that feeling where you just feel your chest and your throat tighten, when you're just like, oh my God, I'm just so sick of this. I'm so angry. Just throw on a song with the older kid. He's obviously old enough now to walk and probably starting to talk, and just start dancing for 30 seconds. Kid will smile, you'll smile. It might just buy you 5 more minutes of tolerance for the drudgery, as you put it, Ger, which is unavoidable when you have 2 kids and you are under pressure all of the time. But Devaney's right. Little moments here and there can...
You have to do it, though, is the thing. It's not easy to escape the drudgery. Like, it's, you know, the days are long and relentless, and, you know, just go to the bloody playground and say, I'm going to sit there with a coffee and just let the youngest one shout and the oldest one run around for an hour and sit there and don't feel the need to entertain them, do any of that. Just...
Oh, totally. Yeah. I guess it's like all of these are the things that, like, letting it wash over you is totally acceptable. And some days are going to be lost days, and that's fine too. But if you can start in the middle of the lost day to plan for a 5-minute window where you feel like you're creating a bit of joy, and that joy could be like, you know, the cardboard box on the head is like, you know, some of the happiest times.
When you go into dark and dream and you put a cardboard box in your head just to get away from the
That's me, yeah. Yeah.
Look, there will be better days ahead, Jenny. 100%. This
so
is
Jerry,
the hardest that it'll ever be.
You've cancelled your summer holidays, Jerry, and you're going camping?
I mean, I don't know. I definitely well, you'd say cancel. We have nothing organized yet.
But look, I admire. Look, Devaney he's a unique individual, and I've had the pleasure of long conversations with Brendan many times, and his lust for life is infectious, particularly for a man who has had, you know, some really difficult times in his life that he's had to deal with and that he's spoken about publicly so amazingly in recent months. But if I decide against the sun holiday and we go camping and it pisses rain for 3 days and the water's coming in through the roof of the tent and there's nothing really to do outside of the tent, Devaney can piss right off.
That's part of the fun.
The thing is, there's always stuff to do. There's always stuff to do. That's the thing. Like, and it's not I always caveat, whatever I say about our experience of that stuff, is that our kids are younger than most years, so it's slightly different. But they don't need to be served up. I've found, like, we go to Inishbofin occasionally, and there is on the face of it absolutely nothing to do on Inishbofin, but at the same time we will fill our days with amazing stuff, and they don't need to be served up or carted or like have a big itinerary of stuff. They'll just find ways to fill the time. And the camping is an amazing thing. I don't know if you guys have done much of that. I know Nathan's a happy camper.
Got our trips organized now. The Murphy camping trip will spark the change in the weather we're all looking forward to. Miserable rain.
But it's brilliant, isn't it? Like, it's just the whole act of it is.
Oh, it is. And once you've done it a couple of times and you get the bit of the gear, like every time we go now on the second day when we're coming home, I'm like, why didn't we just stay for 3 or 4 days?
Yeah.
Because again, the kids find a way, and they're not on fortnight, and they're not doing the things they're normally doing, and they find a way from 6 o'clock till 11 o'clock at night to somehow occupy themselves. Now, they might give out a bit, but yeah, I couldn't recommend it enough.
I'll have to get some details from you, and like
Is
what sort of tents are we talking? What sort of
Yeah,
equipment
I
are we
mean-
talking?
Oh, lads, it's so much
Well, no,
fun.
you have to get the right gear is the thing.
So,
Like we,
hang
in
on,
fairness,
you-
we
you-
went to
hang on.
What?
Hang on. You're going on holidays and you're all in the same tent.
Yeah, it's it
Yeah.
depends. You can get all
But
sorts
what
of tents,
do you
right? You don't
think?
actually
Like,
have to be the
we're-
same.
What do I think? I think there's no private time for you and your missus.
Oh God!
What do you mean? Oh God!
Listen, Jared, hang on.
Jared, the
No,
campsite,
I-
nobody
I-
in the campsite, Jared, nobody appreciates that anyways.
we need
Have
to
you
do.
retired?
We
Picnic.
need, this is
Have
a
you
full.
said you're- is this
This is
you're
a full
announcing
other
your
episode.
retirement?
This is a full other episode. Honestly, like apart from anything else, right? You've got a tent, okay? You don't always need to. You can camp pretty much wherever you want. You don't always need to go into the. If that's your thing, is what I'm saying. You can go into a wild open space, stick your tent down, and do whatever you're. Continue that analogy.
I'm sorry. Your kids are in the same tent.
No,
Adrian.
I'm saying that you're in an open field, Jared. It's the middle of summer. Temperatures are good. You
this
go and
is-
do whatever you need to do.
this is
wherever you
escalated
need to
quickly.
do it.
Whoa.
Let's do the camping episode.
We do need to do
Nathan-
that.
Nathan and Adrian, you can
Yeah.
give us a list of the do's and the don'ts, the haves and the have-nots, the requirements and the things that are not quite
Adrian's
as
best
essential.
locations for outdoor sex in Ireland. Top 5
Where
power
you can get jiggy and where you
Jesus.
can't. What's acceptable and what's not.
Wow, that
Yeah.
escalated quickly.
Well, I
Very
thought
good.
did I misread what you were suggesting?
No, absolutely. Like, I mean, no.
Yeah, so there, where there's a will, there's a way, Jared.
There's a very
Wow.
good chance many of those locations now have a picture of Adrian on a lamppost nearby.
My arse on a lamppost, yeah.
Have you seen
this ginger
that?
arse?
That's right, yeah. And unfortunately for too many people, they probably have. No,
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
that's not true.
okay.
That's not true.
Um,
That's not true.
it's not really my thing, but anyway. Okay.
Well, I was just trying to give you,
I was, yeah.
solutions. I'm a solutions
not
person.
answer it
Jared.
correctly. I'm like
I'm very
Oh,
solutions
yeah.
focused.
prudish Ireland, break the law. That's like, okay.
Well, I think you got to, it was coming back to the point initially of like the maelstrom of being a parent and how it's important to reconnect with your partner and maintain relations so that when the kids move off, that, you're still life partners. Then a bit of outside jiggery pokery is probably conducive to all that.
Is it, Adrian?
Come on
Adrian is
now,
getting
come on now.
banned from,
It's not
Inishbofin.
It's not 1985.
Adrian
Ireland
is getting
anymore. Come on
banned from
now.
Inishbofin.
Okay.
That
That is
I'm trying to offer a solution to your predicament.
No, it's a great solution, Adrian. It is a great solution. It's also, I look forward to drawing this out in the live show in more detail, our X-rated live show.
Yeah. That could take a whole other twist.
If anybody wants to sign up for our pre-sale, how do they do that? Is there a
If
link?
they go along to the Dadcast Twitter handle, what is it, @DadcastPod?
Yeah, okay.
There's a link on there, yeah.
All right. Dadcast is in partnership with Nivea Men. Want to feel great in your skin? Nivea Men has you covered from sensitive, tailored skincare to cleansing and anti-age. Try Ireland's #1 men's skincare brand. That's it for this week. All the dads, Dave, Adrian, Nathan, I'm Ger. We'll see you next week. Dadcast @offtheball.com for your emails. And thanks to everybody who's corresponded with us. We really appreciate it. See you next week, folks. Make sure to rate and share the podcast. Bye.
Dadcast with Nivea Men. Try Ireland's #1 skincare brand.